Hi, welcome to another High Performer Building Pulse. Today we have with us the infamous Peter Wolfkamp, aka the Wolf. I think I can't remember what they used to call you on.
Probably a lot worse than that, but
Or these days the resident builder, much
Yes.
more sophisticated.
slightly.
I actually thought what might be a nice place to start is if you give a bit of your history, because our audience is not mums and dads, which
Sure.
is what you end up talking to a lot of the time.
Yep.
But it's other builders, it's your peers. So in some ways, just kind of establishing where have you come from before they saw you on TV? What did you used to do? And, how did you end
Yeah.
up there?
Yeah. So I was reflecting on this the other day, actually, in terms of what was my introduction into trades and into sort of physical work, right?
Yeah.
Manual labour. And I realised that I come from, in a sense, a family of makers. So Dad had a small steel business that myself and my older brothers used to work in as kids. And my mum is a seamstress, right? So there's, if you've ever done pattern making, it's all about planning, right?
Yeah.
And so in our house at night, after dinner, Mum would clear the table, lay out the fabric and continue making clothes.
Yeah.
And Dad had the business. So there's kind of an introduction to work, running your own business and into that physical activity. So, and then after school, I went and did some youth work for a couple of years and then met up with a family that I knew. And Tom, who was my first boss, Tom Boker, was building a house for his family and needed someone to give him a hand.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, look, I quite like building. We'll have a crack. I'm enormously grateful for Tom's guidance of me at that time.
Yeah.
He's a Dutch guy. My family's from the Netherlands as well. But what he brought with him that will stay with me forever is a tremendous sense of pride about being a carpenter.
Yeah.
And also a real sort of intellectual interest in, why do buildings stay up? And so at Smoko, we'd sit around and we'd talk about, the two forces that are involved in a triangle, which make a truss stay up.
Yeah.
So, really well informed. He came from a whole background of builders. So I worked with Tom for a couple of years, as we all do, went out on my own. And sort of towards about 15, 20, 25 years ago, I started to do a lot of renovations for older houses. So heritage is really important to me. I love the intricacy and the challenge of working on an older house. So that was sort of for the last 20 odd years, that's been my focus in terms of building.
Okay, so we are late October 2025.
Yep.
What do you think are the top 5 challenges for a builder right now in today's market?
Well, look, right now, you can't ignore the fact that it's been tough, right?
Yeah.
And it's been tough not just for a little while, it's been tough for a long time.
Yeah.
And I guess, for me, starting in 87, 87 was stock market crash, right? Not a great time to be in business. It was pretty tough then. And there's been any number of recessions and dips and that. And we've had a fairly good run for a long period of time. So I think the main thing for people today is just keeping your business alive and surviving. Then I think the other thing is really around, do you embrace innovation? Because I think we are coming to a point where for builders who are just doing what they've always done, they're going to be left behind. It's as simple as that.
What's changed? Because they used to get away with it. They've got away with it for years.
I would like to think, and I by nature, I'm an optimist, right? So, I'm a glass half full sort of guy. But I think that what I've seen, and I guess if I look back, I've been doing sort of building and broadcasting and linking those two things together for, I think it's the better part of 25 years now, in terms of, with ZB, answering questions about building. I do a lot of public speaking around building and that sort of thing. And there is a difference in the quality of the questions asked by the consumers. So I think that homeowners and people who are going to commission you to build a house for them have more knowledge now than they ever have.
Yeah, right.
And if you're not able to connect with them and respond to that, they're going to find somebody else who will.
Yeah.
And again, I don't see that as a bad thing, right?
Do you think there's still a general trust with the builder? So where in the past you just go, I don't know, he's the builder, we'll use whatever he says, and now they're asking questions?
Oh, look, I really hope we don't. You know,
Yeah.
I think for the consumer, if they're connecting with a builder and they're saying to them, what are you doing about waste? How do you want to approach energy efficiency? How do you manage your jobs for efficiency? Those sorts of things, and you don't get a good response, find another builder.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you know, we need to compete, right?
Yeah.
And I think generally we're better, but for those that aren't, and there was a story in the paper just on the weekend, right? Some guy down in Wellington who's taking deposits and not turning up for work and that sort of thing. LBP
Yeah.
went to the LBP registration board. You know, we've got to be better. Like
Yeah.
if we're going to be treated as professionals, we need to behave as professionals,
Yeah.
and part of that is upskilling. Now, I'm not saying that people aren't doing that. I know hundreds of chippies that have embraced so much of this new technology that's out there. The fact that we're even talking about building science in a general discourse, right? You know, I know that the professors and the academics have been talking about it for years, but to see it in general discussions around buildings, I think is really, really exciting. But you've got to be on board with that.
Yeah. So, you know, keeping
Surviving,
the work up,
innovation.
keeping the business alive, embracing innovation.
And I think too, we need to. Well, one of the big things for me is around waste, right?
Okay.
Like we're a shockingly wasteful
Yes.
industry.
Yeah.
Like appallingly, eye-wateringly, terribly wasteful. And I think we've got to do better in that space. So again, if you're talking to your builder or if you've got a client that says to you, hey, what are you going to do with waste? Oh, I don't know. I just throw it in a skip and somebody else takes care of it. Not good enough anymore. Right? You can't be in that space anymore. So you've got to look after that. And I think too, we need to be collaborating with other people in the industry around building better homes, right? To really embrace high performance, to embrace all of the technology that's out there. So you've got to be an innovator.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is very normal, and there's chicken and egg here, right? Because you want market to solve problems, you want suppliers to come up. But I think we've got round one of that with the likes of Green Gorillas going, you know, we'll sort it back here.
Yeah.
You just throw it all in the air and we'll sort it.
Yeah.
But it's really step one. There needs to be further evolution of that, in my opinion, because when you talk to them, you know, the more messy it is that it gets to them, the more they end up throwing in the general waste anyway.
Look, I had the opportunity of going out to Green Gorilla's plant, right?
Yeah.
And I've known them for a number of years. Clint, I used to work with him quite a lot, and I guess, you know, when we're running the block, right, that was something that was really important to me to make sure that in all of the chaos and all the rest of it, that we tried to do the best that we could in terms of waste minimisation. And so I was out at Green Gorilla earlier this year, and look, it's fantastic what they do, but they could do so much more if we did a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, for example, watching, you know, the bin gets tipped onto the ground, it goes through the sorting line, and guys are reaching in, grabbing bits of cardboard. That's great that they're doing that. But if on site, we just had a bag and we put all our cardboard in that and sent it away uncontaminated, intact to a recycler, then that's the recoverability.
There's
is
always
massive.
challenges in terms of space on site, and
Yeah.
particularly like those multi-unit sites.
Yeah,
and you're
I
on the
get it.
back unit and the bins at
Sure.
this one. But wherever the bins are, if there's more than one bin, that's what I found, even just when we were fitting out this place, because it was, you know, during COVID, and Dad and I ended up doing a lot of the work myself. And
Sure.
we had a big pile of waste sitting in the middle here, and the intent was to separate it. But what would happen is that pile of waste was now stopping progress.
Yeah, sure.
And the cost of trying to separate it outweighed the fact that we just needed it gone so that the next job could get done.
Yeah, sure.
And
I get
all
it.
of a sudden it just, all in the one skip. And but if I could have carried it downstairs and there was 3 bins, I had no problem. It wasn't going to take me any longer. I can
still
only
gotta walk it
carry so many
downstairs, right?
bits
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
so I just pick all the wood and then all the steel and all the
100%.
you know. But I just didn't have that sitting there. So that's probably in my mind. The next thing is the getting smarter around the bins. How do we deal with the bins so that we don't? It's not practical to have 5 skips on site.
No, we know that.
How do we? Yeah, that'd be the next step, I think, because I don't think there's a general Yes, there's some lazy guys out there, absolutely, but I think most people have gone to the effort, they've carried it all the way there. It's not that hard. As long as the option's there to throw it in the right one, they'll do it,
Then make the bins $1,000, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's off the cuff. But look, I think, in fact, I did an interview on the weekend with Dr. Terry Ann Berry, who runs the environmental innovation. She's probably spoken here. And so we were talking about that again, if you're running the job, right, then you can be responsible for the waste on site. And out of that, I got an email this morning from a guy going, hey, look, I make these little folding frames, which allows you to hang a bag in it, and you could have 2 or 3 of those, and that's where you can put your polystyrene, which I loathe, your cardboard, your other bits and pieces, and do that on-site recycling, right? So what you're taking is clean and has already been sorted. That's really simple. Last block series that we did, I took away, I kind of kept a record of it, the equivalent of about, I think it was close to 20 cubic meters of polystyrene. Now, I know that's bulky material, but it's still a lot, right?
It's expensive to tip as well.
Yeah, well, we were taking it to someone who melts it down. So you go to Abilities Group. And actually, this is the other interesting thing. So brands have now developed an interactive website, which you can, no matter wherever you are in the country, you just go, I'm in this area and I need to recycle or dispose of this. And it will tell you where to go. So it could be batteries, could be polystyrene, could be PVC, could be plastic, could be timber, could be concrete. Everything's got a home, right? There's almost nothing that actually has to go to landfill. I'm not a zero waste fan. Like if I sweep up the workshop floor, no one wants that, right? So I don't think there's any such thing as zero waste. But and the reason I'm pretty passionate about it as well, like I sit as a trustee of a not-for-profit that administers our local resource recovery centre. So by tonnage or by amount, we divert a minimum of 76% of what comes over the weighbridge into the local community recycling centre every single day.
Yeah, wow.
It's doable, right?
Yeah.
It is doable and we should be doing it.
So then the other end of the equation is, what are we turning that stuff into? And I suppose it's chicken and egg, because we need the demand to be there to drive the scale for those manufacturers who are using recycled materials. But I suppose that's the thing again. So the builder thinking about waste isn't just me sorting, it's also choosing to use products that are using high recycled content so that there's a demand for this thing I put in the bin. And then, of course, you've got the builder who maybe gets a little, chip on his shoulder about the fact that he's paying for them to take it away and he's got to pay more to get a new product with it,
Yeah, I mean, it drives me mad when I go past a bin and there's, 6 foot length of 4x2 sitting there that's showing my age, probably a 1.8 metre length of 90 by 45. And I'm like, why would you throw that away for a start? You bought it, you've paid $5 or whatever per metre for it, and now you're throwing it away. So I think we've got to look at ourselves and say that if you're not managing your site and you're buying too much and therefore you're throwing it away, that's really wasteful. That's your profit going down the tubes, right? And then the other thing is, yes, can we look at materials that are more easily recyclable? And in construction, there is a bunch of materials that we use all of the time that are very, very difficult, if not impossible, to recycle. And maybe we need to make some choices about, do I choose to use those items because I can't do anything with the offcuts, or do I use another item that I could? Because, again, there's lots of claddings where you can use the offcuts, right? Or they can be recycled. It's a good point.
Yeah. Tell me what you're hearing in terms of the downturn that we have at the moment. How's it differing from downturns we've experienced in the past?
I think it's the duration of it. Again, my own experience, we've all had times where you're at home cleaning the back of the van out, painting the wheelbarrow, doing, I've chipped cement off bricks, right? I've ground paintwork off walls just because it was work, right? And we can expect to have that for a period of time. But, for some industry or some sectors, it's been 18 months, 24 months almost. That's just really, really tough. So I think the depth of it, the recession and the duration has been the toughest thing.
There was a point earlier on where I was, before it really bit, And I was thinking, oh, this is perfect because our industry is known for boom bust.
Yeah.
And we've had our boom, but we're not busting. We've backed off because we went from, 50,000 consents out of an industry that can only deliver 30,000 at the moment anyway. And so we were sort of dropping right back to 30,000, and you're going, oh, well, that's doable. That's enough work to keep everyone busy. So now, because innovation struggles to get through when everybody's too busy or not busy enough. And I was thinking, oh, great, we're in this perfect sweet spot where people can they've got enough money coming in to pay the bills, but they've got some capacity to stop and think about what could we do differently.
Yep.
And I felt like that for probably 6 months, and then it was like, bugger, we're gone bust again.
Yeah.
But I think you're right in that, and maybe we get to see this actually. Perhaps the duration is painful, but maybe a more gradual climb out might allow for more of this innovation to make its way through, as opposed to crap, the tap's been turned back on and we're all just going like mad and doing what we used to do because that's fast and easy.
And it's that notion of going back to what we always used to do, right?
Yeah.
That if suddenly the tap's open full bore, then you're kind of just chasing your tail. Whereas, I'm really hoping that we don't have those massive increases in house prices and the drive and demand. I mean, we need things to crank up, absolutely. But at the same time, a little bit more considered, a little bit more manageable, and allowing for, I guess, consumers and for us as tradespeople to be more considered around, what can I introduce to the market? How can I change my business to embrace this innovation and then be recognised for my innovation? And have the time to contemplate it. So, we do need growth without a doubt. It's been pretty grim. The other factor, I guess, that's not as pleasant to talk about is that when we have these corrections in the market, let's say, it does sort out the market. Because we all know, if you've been around chipping for a couple of decades, that when things are good, lots of people get sucked into the market. Rates go up. Often quality drops down, and there's always the really good builders that kind of steer their way through. But lots of consumers end up having really poor quality work done, and so on. So though when we get into a bit of a dip, the industry sheds those people out of the industry, and I guess we're hoping that next time it picks up again, that we're able to keep the quality.
My assumption, whether I'm right or not on this, you might be able to tell me, but when it's busy, what you start to see a lot more companies is every man's gone and bought himself a ute.
Sure.
But I'd have to expect that where are those guys coming from? And some of them might be your best guy who's gone and you're like, yeah, fair enough, bugger for me, but makes sense, good on you.
Yeah, I know.
And some of them might be one of your worst guys who have bad attitude, and all of a sudden he can go get himself a set of tools and a ute and put a name on it, and he's competing with you. And that's my assumption, is that a lot of them end up being those kind of guys that maybe shouldn't be. But do you think in the training, in the apprenticeships, is there much business knowledge getting passed on?
Oh, mate, I'm pleased you raised that. It's one of the completely unfathomable challenges. I just can't figure out why no one has twigged to this, right? So you think about all of the training organisations that are out there, and this is all of the trade training, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's carpenters, plumbers, apprentices, gas fitters, the whole lot. So in the last 30 years, they've all collected everybody's name, right? They've got this massive database of people. And typically what happens is you're a young person, you go out, you start your apprenticeship with someone, and you start your training. You finish your training, you might stay with them for a while, and then you go out on your own.
Yeah.
And that's a fantastic drive that we seem to have as Kiwis. I want to go out on my own. Great, go out on your own. And then if you're halfway decent, you end up with more work than you can do. So you take on a person, you take on another person, take on another one. And, maybe 7-8 years after you started your apprenticeship, you're a business owner. And my thing is often that as tradespeople, we're really good tradespeople, but we're actually pretty crap business people.
Yeah.
And we're not interested, right?
Yeah.
So you look at the dashboard and there's receipts tucked in everywhere and shoebox full of stuff, and the end of the financial year comes along and you've got this box of receipts and you dump them on the accountant's desk and you go, oh, sort that out for me, please.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, by the way, have you kept up with your GST and your PA? What? So, you know, what I'm looking at with the training organisations is, so you've got this database. Why wouldn't you reach out to people 3 years, 5 years past their apprenticeship and go, hey, look, come in and let's have a chat.
Yeah.
Where are you at with your business? Do you have a mentor? Do you have someone who helps you in your business? You know, can we give you some advice about running your own business? Because most of us who are plumbers, chippies and that, we're doing it because we're really good at building houses or plumbing or gas fitting or roofing or waterproofing, but we might not be great business people. So how can, I suppose, government or agencies help us be better business people, given that that's where most of us end up?
Yeah. I think that's brilliant. And because it really affects our industry in terms of interpretation.
It sure does.
In terms of trust.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I think as an industry, it's easy for us to go, okay, how do we deliver the market a really good product? And that's a combination of design, materials and craftsmanship. But actually, it's also running our businesses well so that mum and dad don't end up losing their deposit because we buggered up our cash flow, you know?
And look, you know, even prior to when you could see the dip coming here, and I'm looking at the new vehicles and the jet skis and that sort of thing, I'm going, God, you know, because I've been there as well, you go, guys, you know, don't spend it all, right? Just now's a really good time to squirrel away some cash. Like if you're making it, hang on to it. At the same time, I think I have seen some really good examples, and I think about this quite a bit. The couple of guys that I know who have done exceptionally well in terms of translating or making that shift from good tradesperson to good business person, got themselves either a business partner who wasn't involved in the trade or a mentor, and they were really committed to that. And I know of some reasonably large-sized businesses, but they've had someone in the business who has been that extra eyes and ears. And I remember this a couple of years ago, again, when things were getting tough. And I was sitting on site one day, and I've got the guys that are contracting to me, so they're expecting that on Friday I'm going to pay them. I've got the client who I'm hoping is going to pay me, and I've got all the materials that I have to pay for, and I'm sitting there on my box eating a sandwich going, there are two types of people in my life. People who owe me money and people I owe money to. And then there's just me. That's as a business owner, as a tradesperson, that's your life, right? So if you're sitting there and you don't have anyone that you can talk to, and you know, whether that's because things are a bit tough, or whether you need some advice and you're out of your depth, and you've only just realised that because the accountant's ringing, going, do you realise where you're at? Or maybe you haven't bothered picking up the phone from your accountant because you don't want the good news or the bad news. But that's kind of the nature of our lives as small business owners. So make sure that you've got someone alongside you.
I mean, in every business, you know, it's always about how do you work on the business rather than in the business. And that's really hard as a chippy or a tradesperson, because literally you're working on the tools. And that's how you're producing value. It's very hard for guys to put the tools down and stop and think about, you know. But it's interesting. I actually think New Zealand has a problem right into the big companies. They're arguably getting run well as companies. I'm not making any critique there. But I was recently over in Melbourne, and the level of marketing that I still saw out of builders over there, and they're maybe not having it as tough as us, but they've certainly got a lot less than they had a couple of years ago. But like a lot of, you know, the Uber driver had the radio going, and the amount of builders I heard advertising and getting clever about, I think there was a billboard on the side of the motorway that was offering a up-spec sound insulation package. And, you know, like, who cares what it is? It's just having a point of difference and putting their name out there. Whereas I think our industry maybe hunkers down a bit too much in the lows. And actually just waits for the market to come right and then ride the wave back up, as opposed to going and scrapping for every last job you can get, you know?
I mean, in terms of what I do now with the radio and stuff, I'm having conversations with people all the time, and some of them are unexpected. So I was chatting with a guy the other day who's, classic small business. He's got maybe 6 or 8 guys. He's got 4 vans. They're all sign written up. There's a carpenter outside of Auckland. And he said, look, about 2 or 3 months ago, we had literally run out of work. Like there was nothing that I had for the boys to do that afternoon. They'd done some jobs in the morning, nothing. Oof. So we're all sitting in the yard, and he went, right, go and drive around. I want you all to drive around. You go west, you go north, that sort of thing, for 2 hours and come back. And he said, by the end of the day, the phone started ringing just because the vans were out there and the name was on it, the logo was on it, and people could see us. And he said, I picked up work. Now, like I don't relate to that because for all of the work that I did, it was always word of mouth, and I kept a fairly small crew. But if you're running a gang like that, then you need to be out there hustling for work. Yeah. Worked for him.
Okay, so pivoting on to government changes, some of the things, there's been a lot of announcements. We've got to be a little bit careful because things aren't actually set in stone yet. So let's talk more about some of the bigger picture concepts. So things like, let's start with removing joint and several on the councils, and I guess that broader topic of liability, proportional liability. What are your thoughts about it? Do you think we're heading in the right direction, and what would it look like to get that right, and what would it look like to get that wrong?
Okay, to get it right, I think, look, if you look at, my opinion is very much that if you look at almost all of the changes that Chris Penk, as the Building and Construction Minister, is trying to make, is he's trying to solve a problem that he can't solve, which is council. Yeah. And the essence of council's problem is joint and several liability, right? So when everyone else is gone, they're there, last man standing, and they're responsible for the whole thing, even if their contribution to the fault might have been 10%, right? So it makes sense that we get rid of that. Most similar jurisdictions around the world don't have joint and several liability like we do here. So yes, it is a problem and we need to solve it. I think the only way that we're going to solve it, the gap is going to be taken by insurance. Yes. So right now, to the best of my knowledge, there is one insurer in the country that will offer a comprehensive package for a new build or a renovation. Yeah, right. They are very, very selective. So what happens to all of the other building projects? How do you cover that? And the concern, the way that I've heard it expressed, is what they call an empty chair. That in the end, when there's a problem and council are responsible for argument's sake 10%, 15%, and the builder's gone and the plumber's gone and the waterproofer's gone and the manufacturer might have closed up and all the rest of it, and the homeowner is completely and utterly they don't have anywhere to go. That's going to be the biggest risk, right? We don't want that to be a problem for homeowners, some of whom maybe didn't do due diligence when they bought the house, and they should have. So I think we've all got to contribute to ensuring that we don't buy something that's a problem. But at the same time, we also can't expect homeowners necessarily to be an expert in these things. So we need to ensure that there are sufficient protections into the future for them. Insurance is going to be the only way. Can we get insurers to come to New Zealand and stay here? Not sure. Yeah.
I mean, inevitably you'd have to expect there's going to be a cost that comes with it.
Yes.
But an upside in terms of, hopefully the upside in terms of higher productivity and like less kind of red tape slowing things down.
I'm not completely convinced of that argument, and
because it still has to, the checks and balances still have to be there. It's just someone else doing them. Or what's your
exactly.
Yeah.
So I raised this with a mate who's a member of the New Zealand Institute of Building Surveyors, right? So 70 square metre thing. The announcement was last week.
Yes.
So providing it complies with planning regulations. The hard thing with talking about this is that in the public's ear, it sounds like there are no more rules. And that's not the case, right? No. So 70 square metre minor dwelling or simple standalone dwelling, SSD, that they're talking about, in the backyard, you don't need a building consent. You still need a PIM, you still need a licensed building practitioner, you still need a designer, you still need sub-trades to sign off their work, you need to inform council, you're probably still going to be contributing to a reserve contribution fee. And if you want to sort of be able to say to someone, it's a good building, would you go and get a building surveyor to supervise the work? Rang him and said, what would it take for you to do that? Well, I'd want to see the plans. I'd want to do site visits. What do you charge an hour? More than council charge.
Yeah.
So, are we actually going to see some savings? What I suppose from a free market point of view, what I quite like about it is that it will give some choice, right?
Yes.
And I wonder whether some homeowners and property owners will just go, you know what, I'm going to stick with the consent process because it feels you have got confidence, right?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but at least there's choice. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But not as straightforward, I think, as it's been presented.
No. But I think it creates a space for more dynamic set of solutions.
Sure.
And the insurers, in my mind, are the best people to assess risk and apply a dollar figure to it.
Yep.
And when I think about, and they'll offer a range of covers. It won't be blanket like we're currently looking at, and just like any other insurance, you can get life insurance. That's not so expensive, but if you want trauma or sickness, that's a different kettle of fish. So do you want insurance to make sure the house never falls down? Great, but do you want insurance that anything's going to go wrong? Well, that might cost a bit more, But so we've got more dynamic kind of ways that we can look at it. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
And also, I think, while it might provide, the estimates that I've seen is that it might provide housing. They reckon about 13,000 of these SSDs might be constructed. Now, that's not an insignificant amount.
No.
And I'm not sure if that's 13,000 per annum. I doubt it.
Yeah.
That's a third of the number of dwellings that we're building.
That's a lot.
But, there are some advantages to it. And in certain parts of the country, for family dynamics and all the rest of it, I think it's a great opportunity, right? So I'm all in favour of it. It's just, is this the panacea to housing affordability? No, it's not.
The other thing is it's getting kind of branded the granny flat, but it's not. 70 square metres, you can build yourself a 3-bedroom little home if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so people are going to be looking at that and going, well, I could fit one of those on there and rent it out for $600-700 a week potentially in Auckland.
Yep. Well,
and so it's not. But the other thing I was going to ask is,
maybe
so
not.
you don't need a resource consent, right?
Yeah.
So what about services?
Yeah, see, I think that as I understand the process, so let's say you've got an idea for one and you've got the space and you've measured 2 metres in from the boundary and you've still got the land and maybe you've got enough site that the site coverage isn't an issue, then you go along to council with a PIM. Yep. So there'll be some new project information memorandum and they'll look at it and maybe the council will still say, look, in your street or in your area, we're already at capacity.
Yeah.
We're going to decline your application.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that might happen.
Yeah. Which on one hand is like, okay, so this is open, but you can't do it anyway. And on the other hand, I know that I know developers that were frustrated because it was looking like, well, they were getting consents denied due to capacity, but it looked like the guy down the road could throw a house on the back and there could be 10 of them and tap in, but yeah.
And there will still be a request, I think, from council for a reserve contribution. So again, it's not like you're getting away scot-free. No. You're going to have to put your hand in your pocket.
Okay, what else we got? Building consents.
Yeah.
Authorities working together, collaborating
Great.
If they want to.
Great.
What do you reckon the update's going to be?
Well, there's lots of talk at the moment that Wellington might start. Well, they're actually talking about combining some of their actual councils. So inevitably, they will also start to combine their processing divisions. I think it makes sense, and particularly, I think we've got too many councils for a start. And the fact, the intense frustration of people that work across the council line, and I've talked to guys in Christchurch, you've got a builder who submits a consent to Selwyn and then one to Waimakariri, and exactly the same consent but 2 different responses, right? That's really frustrating. There is, after all, just one building code.
Yeah.
So, if they start to combine, but at the same time, we're also talking human nature, right? So no one wants to give up their little fiefdom, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got my office, I've got my consenting person. Do I want to give that up and join with Joe Bloggs down the road? Yeah, maybe not. I think the potential, like one of the things being talked about is this one portal for the submission of building consents.
Okay.
So they'd all be farmed out to the different processing offices
Yeah.
at different councils, but there'd be one point of lodgement. I don't know, but I'm wondering whether part of that might be the introduction for some AI into
That's
the
what I
process,
think. Yeah.
which I think I could see some benefits to that because, again, so much of the discussion around the length of time that it takes to get a building consent ignores the possibility and likelihood that a lot of building consents get submitted and they're just rubbish,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So somebody does something, they send it in, they're waiting for council to tell them what to do because they don't know what to do, and that slows the process down. So I have this image that, the consents are submitted through one portal, AI scans them, spits out details going, you missed this and you missed
Yep.
that and you missed that, and you get it back in half a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. No
Yeah.
downside to that.
Yeah. Relatively early on, they brought in a shift to the minor variations.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that get utilised much, and is it helpful, or is it?
I haven't seen it, but I suppose, well, it feels like it's going back to the good old days, right?
Yeah.
Where, 30 odd years ago, the building inspector would turn up, you'd go, oh, look, the client was here on the weekend, I'd like to move the window over a little bit, and I know the lintel's slightly bigger, but that makes it the same size as that lintel over there.
Yeah.
So if I put that size lintel over there, is that okay? And the building inspector, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
I suppose we're looking to return to that.
Yeah.
I suppose what's changed in those years is that building consents are a contract, right?
Yes.
So an amendment to a contract requires all of this paperwork that goes with us.
Yeah.
That's the loop that we're in at the moment.
And so this hasn't shifted that.
Look, I haven't seen it on site yet.
No.
It might be a little bit too early to see.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think the other thing is we kind of went round and round looking at what needs to change, and I think there was a lot of stuff that was already working overseas that we could just copy. But again, you don't want to just adopt someone else's problems either. But I was talking to an architect friend who they're doing a project in the States, and over there they have the general contractor.
Yep.
And they're starting to detail to the level that they would detail here. And we want you to use these screws and with this little rose head because we like that one. And the contractor over there's going, stay out of it, mate.
Yeah.
That's my business. Just give me a picture and I'll build your building, Which is totally different.
I don't know if that's,
but again, what I like about that comes back to this, proportionate liability, because this is where we've gotten so micro detailed.
Yep.
And the builder going, well, I'm not doing it unless the architect puts it on the piece of paper, and the architect's going, well, I'm not a builder, I don't know which, I'm just going to have to go through the catalogues, or there's all this time spent, and it kind of makes it really slow and difficult. And I think the reality is we are in this position where people are carrying more liability than they actually have control over. Council, for example, but even architects. There's this. We've got to fix that crossover where perhaps the architect's saying what to install, but the builder's responsible for how it gets installed. Because when the architect starts telling the builder how to install something, they're now taking liability for the application, which in practice, that's sitting with the builder.
And behind what you're saying is that the builder does the research to ensure that the product they're using is suitable for that. And most of the time, let's be honest, we don't, right?
But that's a problem.
Well, yes, it could be. But then just a little bit further down the motorway here, there's a couple of big buildings that have just been tented. And the issue that they've discovered, and I'm just reading from what I've read in the paper, is that while a certain way of assembling the roof, right. was detailed, it wasn't done on site. So it was clear that the substrate that was fixed down to the top of the purlins was to be screw fixed, and they decided to glue it. And then something else happened as well. Now it's leaking, right?
Yeah, right.
And it was clear on the plan, but it's the contractor on site who didn't do it.
Yeah. But see, I think we end up, that's negligence.
Yes.
Really.
Potentially, yeah.
And my concern is that we're breeding negligence by the builder not putting his hand up for stuff and going, that's the architect's job.
Oh,
he's the expert.
Yes,
I'll put it together, but it's up to him to tell me which nail to use or whether I use glue or not. And I'm going, no, you actually, where is your expertise coming to the party?
Yeah. I wonder whether, and we're starting to see it, and people are talking about a lot more, is early contractor engagement, right?
Yep.
So this idea that, and this could be on small projects, I think it's actually more common common on larger ones is that rather than it's all office stuff, and then it gets dumped on the contractor's lap, and he goes, she goes, but if we had have done it this way, it would be more efficient, it'd be quicker, it'd be cheaper, it'd be faster, right? That holy grail of what we're looking for. But because in the office they don't know that, and they don't want to talk to the contractor, because there is that tension, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always saying to homeowners, if you're going to do a renovation and you've got your designer in mind, and you happen to have your builder in mind as well, get them to talk to each other early, right? And yet I know if most architectural designers are honest, they don't want to be talking to the builder.
Yeah.
Right? They probably don't actually like builders to some degree.
We've got this kind of combative.
Yes, we are often
and I
combative.
think this is bred from them feeling responsible for the other person's mistakes.
Yep.
The builder feeling like, I'm responsible for what you give me and I've got to do with it. And I think it's a stupid idea that you've drawn it like that, but that's how I've got to build it because you drew it like that. And the architect kind of feeling like, well, you never build it like
hey, I've done 7 years at university. I know everything.
Yeah, or you never do what I tell you anyway.
Look, I think if we can be more collaborative, that's great. And again, like I've got a couple of architects, especially in the heritage space that I've worked with. One guy, Jeremy Salmon, right?
Yeah.
Probably our most famous architect in terms of heritage. And I can still remember him coming to the job one day, wandering through, and then there was a particular thing that we needed to detail. And he drew up a little sketch, gave it to me and said, "Can you make this work?" And I went, "Yes, I can do that." And I've got another one where I'm working with Dave Pearson, who's another heritage architect, and we were looking for particular detail for some stone columns, right? Or some concrete columns at the entrance to this house. We drove around, we found one, we just finished eating a pie. He sketched it up on the back of the pie wrapper and said, "That's what I want you to build."
Yeah.
Now, this is, I'm saying this, you can't build houses like that, right?
No.
But a collaboration between client, builder, and designer is really good, and have that conversation early.
Yeah, but also being able to trust each one's expertise.
Yeah, sure.
And I think there's too much adversity and too much pointing the finger as opposed to working together and collaborating. Because
and I guess some of that might come, hard lessons from designers who get frustrated with doing designs, coming on site and looking at the builder going, "That's not what I drew."
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, no, I just thought I'd do it somehow differently."
Yeah.
That's not how it works, right?
Yeah, or on the other hand, the builder goes, "Yeah, I got the set of designs, but you hadn't thought at all how I was going to do that. So I just had to come up with it."
I had those discussions
all the time.
You sit there and you're looking through the plans and, there's this really funky flashing thing that's been drawn up. And I'm looking at the architect going, "You can't make that."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know enough about folding stuff to know I can't go to my guy, I can't go to Grant and ask him to fold that up because he's going to tell me it's impossible.
Yeah.
But I've drawn it. Well, it doesn't matter that you've drawn it. You can't build it, right?
Yeah.
But again, if you weren't in those early discussions and you pick that up on site, then suddenly it holds the job up. So early contractor engagement, I'm all for it.
All right, well, Pete, thanks for coming along, and
it's been
really
a pleasure.
Appreciate it. We've gone all over the place, but you've been around for a lot of years. No offence. But I like where we started. I like the fact that you started with a classic house as your first home, and everything that you learned, and then where you're at. You're someone who's got a lot of experience across a lot of things and getting exposed to a ton of stuff out there. So, it's been a privilege to have you here.
Pleasure.
Thank you for your encouragement, and thank you for what you're doing out there to help the industry move forward, to drive change and to produce a better outcome. And I know that you do that because you care, not just for money. And I suspect there's a lot of stuff that you do not for money that, is because you care about what New Zealanders are getting in the industry. So I appreciate it.
It's an exciting time, and I think there's good reason to be really excited about what we do, also really proud about what we do as tradespeople, and the opportunities going forward. Like it's that exponential growth, right?
Yeah.
I reckon it's such an exciting time to be in the building game.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you all for joining us for another one, and we appreciate it, and looking forward to catching you on the next one. If you can like and subscribe, whether you're on Spotify or YouTube or whatever else we're broadcasting on, that'd be great. And we will catch you on the next one. Cheers.
Thank you.